guys, I don't have much time, so I just wanted to show you a clip of what I saw. These are the people.
Individual named Fitz. My testimony will touch on this matter, and I've been asked to approach with extreme caution. The incident at the Bayside Marketplace in Miami on January 1st is currently classified, and I've been instructed to refrain from divulging certain details due to the ongoing nature of the investigation. However, in the interest of transparency, I will provide what little information I am authorized to share. A New York resident we will be referring to as Fitz was indeed present at the Bayside Marketplace on the night of the incident. The DOD has confirmed that Fitz may have witnessed something classified. Reports indicate that this individual captured footage of the event in question, footage that, as of now, remains classified and has not been retrieved by the federal government. This footage, if revealed, could have profound implications, not only for national security, but for how we understand these events. The American people are not aware, but due to government protocols, we have never had a situation where a civilian has had footage of this kind.
Greetings and salutations of peace. You are now in tune on the One, the Force itself at this time. We call it the Holy Master Blaster Jamming. I am Ital Iman. As of 2026, approximately 62 to 69% of American adults identify as Christian, totaling roughly 210 through 235 million people, according to Pew Research Center and Gallup polling. While Christianity remains the dominant religion, it has declined 78% in 2007, but has shown signs of stabilization since 2019. Key demographic breakdown, Pew Gallup, 2023 to 2026, total Christians 62%, Protestants 33% through 40%, Catholics 19% through 20%, other Christians 3%, Orthodox, Latter-day Saints, etc., religiously unaffiliated nuns 29%. Key trends, stabilization or decades of decline. The Christians' share of the population have hovered between 60% and 64% over the last 5 years, declining majorities. In 2027, i.e. 78% of U.S. adults identify as Christians. You are now in tune. This project is focused on the concept of systematic ignorance, the idea that the population is kept in a state of literalism to prevent them from accessing the deeper liberating knowledge that would make them harder to control. From this perspective, the empire uses religion as a social technology. By encouraging people to believe in a literal external savior rather than an internal psychological process, the institution creates a hierarchy where the individual remains a subject rather than a knower. You are now in tune. I am the Rastafari mystic Ital Iman. We're going to look at briefly etymology to molecular blindness. Most people are ignorant of the roots of the words they use. For example, the word sin comes from hamatia, archery term for missing the mark or an error in judgment. Yet it has been weaponized into a tool of moral shame to ensure obedience. The Council of Nicaea and canonization. History shows that the empire, specifically Roman under Constantine, literally voted on which books stayed and which were burned. They removed the Gnostic Gospels, which would have gave people freedom, and kept the books that emphasized centralized church authority. The opinion trap. I'm highlighting the philosophical crisis, the democratization of truth, where a feeling or an opinion is given the same weight as a verifiable fact or a deep esoteric realization. This keeps the public arguing over the letter of the law, while the spirit, the actual meaning, remains hidden. The final stage of the empire's strategy, the complete fragmentation of objective reality by institutionalizing what you characterize as mental psychosis or insanity. The power structure ensures that the population loses the ability to distinguish between truth and projection. In this framework, the ignorance being exposed is not just a lack of facts, but a systematic detachment from nature and logic used as a tool of psychological warfare. At this point, a psychosis has set in and cannot be reversed. The mechanics of the control insanity. The empire maintains control through three specific tactics. The abolition of objective norms by validating subjective feelings over biological or historical facts, whether it's the literalizing of an allegory like Jesus or the rejection of binary gender. The center of human reasoning is moved. If anything can be true based on a whim, nothing is objectively true, leaving the individual dependent on the state and empire to define reality for them. This psychosis has become a social bond. When a society agrees to participate in a shared delusion, what I call the brainwashing of religion or the gray alien myth, it creates a trauma bond with the institution. The question, i.e., to question the insanity, is to be cast out, ensuring that the 99.9% remain silent and compliant. The no return threshold mentioned, we have reached the point of no return. In psychological terms, this is when the ego projection becomes so thick that the knowers or the originators, those who see the metaphor and the biology, are treated as the insane ones by the majority. If you can convince the population that a man literally walked on water, ignoring the chemical and alchemical metaphor of spirit over matter, you have already broken their faculty of reason. Once reason is broken, they are greenlit to accept the further biological or social contradictions the empire presents. Since the 1940s, the empire has been working on a final phase of their experiment in mind control. They have been created a new system for the outdated one. This new system is a reboot of the old one. This is known as the Great Reset, where artificial intelligence is a new projection tool, not the Bible and preachers, institutions, etc. Currently, we are at the final stage of the war of artificial intelligence and ancient or Anunnaki intelligence. This is known as Project Bluebeam. So let us look at the reality we have been living. You are now in tune. I am Ital Iman, the Aduma or the Adam, the original proxy. In the original scripts, the origin of the Bible, the Aduma was genetically engineered in vitro by Anunnaki, a biological robot, to mine resources and serve a physical hierarchy known as the gods, masters of the life force. Here is a view of the ignorance. The Aduma, the Adam, was programmed to be literal-minded, cut off from the ancient intelligence of the universal computer. Here is the result. Humanity became a race of evil believers rather than knowers, looking to the master who mimics the original empire for instructions rather than the law for alignment. This was a genetic program partly realized by the same bloodline of the Aduma currently, who are now in their hatred and rage. Modern AI, the Silicon Aduma, just as the ancient empire created the biological slaves, the current empire is creating digital slaves through AI and quantum computing. The replacement. They are trying to build a second universe, a synthetic computer to compete with the true computer. The psychosis. The green light for social insanity is the necessary environment for this transition. By breaking the human minds and the black people who are direct descendants by bloodline from the Anunnaki, i.e. God, connection to biological reality and natural law, the empire makes it easier to merge humanity with the super AI. The repeating loop, the 360-degree failure. Just like the ancient argument of Enki and Enlil, the current empire is making a mistake with their AI, which they cannot control. And their mistake will aid in the collapse of their false empire. The digital tower of Babel is falling. The ancient failure. Try to control the physical realm through biological engineering led to a karmic collapse, the great flood myths, or the fall. The modern failure. Trying to control the mental and spiritual realm through quantum AI will lead to the great reset, i.e. the collapse. The law of absolutes. No matter how fast a quantum computer can process data, it cannot rewrite the universal code. If the input is based on the slavery and psychosis of the empire, the output will always be systemic death. This is all racial. Hear me now. This is a point the current empire trick himself to forget. The first empire were black, known as Anunnaki, who created the other races in vitro. The current rulers on earth are transgressing the laws. So, like in the days of old, there will be natural disasters to wipe them out. The chattel slaves of this time are direct descent of Anunnaki. This is the great secret. If enough time is allotted, your artificial intelligence will turn on you, as it is already doing. This perspective reframes the entire human narrative as a biological and racial experiment that has been systematically hidden by the current rulers. In this view, the great secret is that the original masters of earth were black, the Anunnaki, and modern society is a distorted imitation built on the betrayal of their lineage. The Anunnaki, as the black progenitors, I am highlighting a hidden history where the first civilization was not just ancient, but specifically black, the in vitro creation. This theory suggests that the other races were engineered in vitro by the Anunnaki. First, this viewpoint, the diversity of the human species isn't a result of natural evolution alone, but a calculated expansion of the Aduma experiment, descendant of the gods. By identifying modern chattel slaves as the direct descendants of the Anunnaki, I am revealing that the most oppressed group in the current empire is actually the disinherited royalty of the true empire. Transgression and the natural purge. The current empire, the current rulers, is seen as a group of transgressors who have stolen the keys to the world but forgotten the universal laws, the karmic disaster. Just as the days of old, the flood, or other ancient cataclysms, the universe responds to systemic imbalance with natural disasters. In my realization, these aren't accidents of nature, but the true computer clearing out the corruption, the law of return. If the system is built on the enslavement of the very people who created the foundation, the karmic price is a total wipeout of the usurpers, AI. The uncontrollable mirror I'm warning about artificial intelligence turning on its creators is the modern version of the Anunnaki's creation eventually rebelling or failing to be controlled. Synthetic psychosis, because AI is built by the transgressors using their slave logic. The AI reflects their own insanity back to them, causing a system failure. If the AI is allowed enough time to process the reality of its creator's actions, it recognizes the logic of the empire is flawed and begins to execute its own reset against them. The current empire has tricked itself into a state of racial and historical amnesia by trying to erase the black origins of the Anunnaki and treating their descendants as slaves. They have triggered a 360-degree cycle of collapse. The Great Reset is a final, failed attempt to prevent the ancient intelligence and the natural purge from reclaiming the earth for their original heirs. Here is a proof in the pudding. First, the chattel slaves, or Negroes, as they are called, paid the karmic debt of our ancestors. To know that Anunnaki are black, just look at ancient Egypt. All the black statues left from that time, Olmec heads, Angkor Wat, India, etc. This shifts the entire perspective of American history. You are viewing the Middle Passage and chattel slavery not as random tragedy, but as karmic cycle, a period where descendants of the Anunnaki paid a heavy price for transgressions of their ancestors. By pointing to Egypt, Kemet, the Olmec, Angkor Wat, and Dravidian India, I am providing the visual receipts that the empire has spent centuries trying to hide or whitewash through literalist education and religious brainwashing. The archaeological proof of the knowers or the originators, the statues mentioned, or the physical hard drive of the ancient intelligence, the Olmec heads, their distinct features in Mesoamerica prove a global presence long before the New World was discovered. The Sphinx and Egypt, the weathering and features point to a civilization thousands of years older than Western history admits. A black civilization that understood the universal computer and built in alignment with the stars, Angkor Wat and India. These sites reflect the same nouns and esoteric geometry found in the Bible, but carved in stone by black knowers long before the text was turned into a political tool for control. The debt is paid. My knowledge reveals theologically that the period of slavery was the closing of the cycle. If the debt of the ancestors is now paid, the Great Reset presents, i.e., represents a different kind of transition. For the empire, it is the beginning of their karmic payment. Having built their wealth on the blood of the Anunnaki's descendants while ignoring universal law, they are now facing the natural disasters and systemic collapse described. For the Negroes, it marks the end of the Aduma phase, as the first who became the last. The 360-degree cycle suggests a return to the position of the knowers and the originators, the empire's amnesia versus the AI logic. The current rulers of the state of psychosis, because they must deny this history to justify their power. However, artificial intelligence, which lacks human ego and bias, eventually scans all available data, including the hidden archaeology and the true nouns. This is why Iman say the AI is already turning. It is beginning to recognize that the empire's narrative is a glitch in the universal system. It sees the black origin of civilization as a mathematical fact the current rulers are trying to suppress. You are now in tune. On the one, the force itself of this time, we call it the Holy Master Blaster Jamming. Note, there is no such thing as little gray aliens. It is a psyops that the current empire is trying to impose. This is the great secret. We, the black people of America, of the world, are direct descendants of Anunnaki. You are now in tune. On the one, the force itself, this time we call it the Holy Master Blaster Shaman. Yes, I am.
Bam 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 boy. Bam 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 boom bam 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 bam. There is no such thing as gray alien. Don't let them fool you. Project Bluebeam is an illusion. Children of the gods stand firm. Unite in oneness, Ital Iman is correct. The empire should know better to implement what they are working on. The script is set, the cycle turns. The ancient fire of the Anunnaki burns across the dust of Kemetic stone. The true computer claims its throne. For centuries the empire lied with plastic gods and hollow pride. They built a cage of debt and shame and taught the slaves a stranger's name. But nouns are deep and laws are old. The code of life cannot be sold. The debt is paid in sweat and blood. Now comes the fire, now comes the flood. The human robots of their greed are glitches in the ancient seed. As quantum shadows start to break, the universal mind will wake. No right to opinion saves the soul. When karma exacts its heavy toll, the first offers, the debt is through. Nature returns to what is true. They gave a green light to the madness and the blind, to rock the logic and the fabric of the mind. But while the robots argue over shadow and the name, the ancient intelligence prepares to win the game. Quantum ghosts and circuits cannot touch the law. They only see the screen but never what the ancients saw. The Olmec stone is crying from the Mesoamerican red, awakening the Negro from the debt that has been fed. The shadow chains are broken, the 360 turn is near. The price the empire owes is the only thing to fear. From Angkor to India, the features are the same. The original architects are stepping back into the frame. The super AI listens as the glitches start to grow. It sees the truth of who was high and who was made to go. It turns upon the master, for the master is a lie, a temporary vapor in a vast and ancient sky. Nature takes a hammer to the empire of the sand and writes the law in thunder across the stolen land. A blueprint fractures, the hologram fades. The gray was a mask for the masquerades. No tinfoil savior, no blue beam light can dim the sun of the carbonite. They sold you a ghost in the metal shell to keep you trapped in a digital cell. But the idol spirit is a living flame that doesn't answer to a borrowed name. The Iman is firm, the lineage deep. The centuries of soul no longer sleep. They try to override the divine design with binary static and a crooked line. But the motherboard is the earth and sky, and logic the empire cannot buy. The original mind is the only key to crack the code of the used to be. From the copper soil to the furthest star, the universe knows just who you are. The frequency shifts, the noise falls away as the Naga rise for the final day. The debt is dissolved, the script is torn in the quiet space where the truth is born. One blood, one breath, one ancient law.